Welcome to Demandbase Smart 2022. The path to revenue might surprise you. The importance of art and science in driving growth. I'm Robin Izsak-Tseng, VP of Revenue Marketing with G2, and today I'm joined by Sara Koppes, Director of Marketing Ops and Analytics, also with G2. By way of introduction, a little bit about me, and then I'll hand it over to Sara. I've been with G2 only for about 8 months, but it's been a wild and fun 8 months so far. Let's see, I'm married. I have 2 kids, 8 and 9, and a huge record collection, and probably a lot of time spent in the SaaS industry, tech, working in marketing roles, from content marketing to technical writing, and now revenue marketing. So Sara, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, I'm Sara. I joined G2 about, I think, 4 months ago. I come from a company called Sendoso. We were very much embedded in the ABM space, doing direct mail and gifting. I did not prepare fun facts because I didn't know that was happening, but I did. I did get a golden doodle, so I'm a proud dog mom of 1.
Awesome. And you're a twin. That's like,
Yeah.
that's an amazing fact in your back pocket at all times.
I usually use that one.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you joined me, because I think by the time we're done, everybody will know why revenue marketing and marketing operations together can be really your dream team of the organization. So this is going to be fun, and maybe kind of a wild ride. But the theme of the conference is sales and marketing accelerating revenue today. And I think that's really what we do. That's in our DNA, right, Sara? I mean, the marketing team at G2 has pipeline goals. At least we do. The revenue marketing team does, and we're kind of in the beginning of mapping out what that looks like for G2. So the first thing I want to start with is kind of strategy as a whole, and what do we mean by art plus science? Now, I know I've been in marketing probably a little bit longer than you, so I've seen some things. And I remember back in the days before we had automation and a tech stack and like MarTech all over the place. We were really sitting in conference rooms talking about like PR and brand plays and events, and doing like collateral for sales and custom swag and stuff like that. And those were the days really before we had like the tools and technology to kind of prove marketing's influence on pipeline and revenue. And so when we did get those tools, it kind of changed everything. And sometimes I think, because I've kind of seen the whole swing of the pendulum, I wonder, did we overcorrect a little bit, like steer a little bit too much toward the science, and we kind of lost our way and forgot that, at the end of the day, we're marketers. We agonize over words and copy and design and things like that. But I think what I really hope we get across during this presentation is that you really truly do need both. And most successful marketing teams have kind of found that the right balance between the art and the science. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So in our case, like we already mentioned, right, you know this, Sara, as well as I do, our goal on the revenue marketing team is pipeline, marketing sourced pipeline. We're also looking at metrics that are around kind of marketing influence on revenue, but not direct source right now. And for ABM, when companies truly do adopt more of an ABM model, you become less focused on like the MQL type funnel and that usual waterfall, and more focused on metrics around like account engagement and things like that. But once you have a clear picture of your primary goal, what you really ought to do is work back a plan. So if it's marketing source pipeline, generally you get a number. Hopefully you know pretty much how much budget you have to work with, or that's part of your planning process like we're going through right now. Like what feels like an efficient, return on ad spend? I don't know. Let's, throw something in and figure it out as we go. But the really important thing to remember is that none of your campaigns, if they're not developed from a deep understanding of your audience and what does your audience care about and what are they solving for, none of it is really going to mean much anyway, if we're honest. And so I think once you kind of know what your goals are, you really are in that ideation phase, figuring out what are the messages and that will resonate, and you know, who's the audience and what are we actually trying to achieve, and most importantly, why do they care? Why do they give a shit? It's like a noisy world, and you have to figure out, like, if you're taking people's time, what are they most interested in, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think what you said is super important. Like, you have so many different types of campaigns. And if you don't start with the goal in mind, what you're trying to achieve, it's not going to be a great campaign. Like, if you say your goal is pipeline and you're trying to say, like, okay, we need X amount of pipeline from the budget that we have, which is X amount of MQLs, but your campaign's actually targeted to customers, what are you doing? Like, you're not really, you're not targeting the right people, and you're hitting the wrong people with the wrong message, which is an irking experience when you're like a end user, prospect, a customer, whoever it is.
Totally. And what's more, what if your goal is really more ABM focused and it's account engagement? Then have you done the foundational work of being like, okay, we know our top accounts, we know who we want to go after. How many of these contacts are even in the database? And what are we going to do to enhance, you know, our database with the right contacts? Because the nuance of ABM is really about, you know, being seen and heard in front of all the decision makers in the buying process, not just one rando that like sits on the marketing team of the company that you're trying to target, right? So it's all super important. And then once you've done all that, you know, ideation and the creative stuff and the planning and what are we trying to achieve, you really move into like execution and ultimately measurement. And I really want to call out here why having, you know, someone focused on demand gen who fully understands like the marketing operations and tech landscape and has partnered with somebody amazing like you is because you really have to understand like what's even possible. Like, what tools do we have in the stack? How are we going to execute on these plans? Do we need tools like, who knows what, Zoom Info or something to try to get more contacts in the database? And you know, I think me and you just had this conversation last week. We can't be spamming people that never opted in, right? So it's like, we can't just download contacts and shove them into the database and hope for the best. You have to use tools like, you know, Demandbase and other things in your stack, and go out on channels like maybe Rollworks or LinkedIn and try to find ways to target people in these accounts and get them to voluntarily opt in so that you're not just spamming a bunch of people that you downloaded and put into your database. And then the most important thing, which I think you could talk about all day, and is probably a whole separate session, is measurement. Because if you have pipeline goals or revenue goals as a marketing team, you really have to make sure that you're able to prove out what it is that you're doing. And often we're asked by our board and other people, be predictable, you know, prove out that you have kind of a smart efficiency model, hit these massive goals, but at the same time, like, do it in a smart and efficient way. So can you talk a little bit about kind of the measurement part of this, Sarah, before we move on to the next slide?
Yeah, I would say that there's definitely been times where campaigns have launched and I've gotten a request for metrics and it's like, oh no, we don't track that today. That's not our core metrics that we track. And it's definitely an unfortunate situation. So if I could give any piece of advice, it's always like, include your marketing ops person in the planning part, you know, say what's possible. Or if you have an idea of what reporting you want, give them time to stand it up if it's something new. I think that'll help everyone just in those situations and help marketers really showcase their work, which is kind of like MOP's goal at the end of the day too. It's like, I want to highlight people and how successful their campaigns are and make sure that they have the data that they need to make the decisions that they're going to make. So I definitely see that like measurement happens at the end, but you should really be thinking about it in your ideation and your planning phase for sure.
100%. You're right. It has happened, I think, even this week. It's only Tuesday. And we've heard like it's like, what are you even thinking? We don't have the data today to measure that. Or it's the sales process on the other side. Like, when are they actually opening opportunities? Or if it's customer growth, like expansion. And it's sort of like, everybody just calm down for a second. Like, we'll get there, but you need to be thinking about that, way in advance. So I think that's so important for sure. Okay, so I wanted to talk for a minute about kind of how has the landscape evolved. And I sort of touched on this in the very beginning. And it's interesting for me, especially having been around for a minute and like having been in marketing pre-automation and pre-tech stack, and certainly pre-G2, where my goodness, if you look at the automation category or the CRM category on G2, it's like mind blowing. But I feel like what I was saying before is that back in the day, there was really a lot of PR, and I remember writing articles that would be put in like actual print publications, tech companies that would like print bylines that would go in like, data storage today, or we would be doing like custom swag for sales to go out on the golf course, with like, monogrammed like grill tools and stuff. And the wild thing to me is that was kind of like ABM before we actually had a buzzword for ABM. That was just marketing, where you did a lot of brand work to create, I think, experiences and brand recognition that made people want to be a part of whatever it is that you were doing. And marketing was there to really arm sales with collateral and leave behinds and swag, and you'd be at all the events. And then, I was lucky enough, I think, to be with a tech company that was an early adopter of Marketo. And that was my first exposure to this world. And they were like, here, figure this out. You understand technology. It was like, what? And I think witnessing that shift and then kind of seeing the landscape of, technology evolve and explode literally has been wild. And I feel like, Sara, for you as a marketing ops professional, this role simply did not even exist back in the day. I think back then, marketing operations would have meant you're the one calling like Clear Channel to make sure that your billboard placements are up. Like, that was the role of operations. Imagine that compared to what you're doing today. And it just kind of blows my mind that we really now have this amazing ability to kind of like prove our value to the organization, constantly iterate and A/B test and kind of know what's resonating with our audience and what's not. And I love now that we're kind of like, I don't want to say we're on the other side, but sometimes I feel like we are on the other side. We have these amazing tools in our stack that can help us actually be better marketers. So take that creative and art piece of what we do and link it back to, it's not just about like MQLs and leads anymore. We've done that, been there, done that. We're now moving back to like engaging accounts and like real human beings that work at these accounts. It's like like G2, right? We target marketing teams, but your role is different from my role and different from like a product marketer's role, different from a customer marketer's role. And so we now have the ability to look at an account as a whole and really target the team with, hyper personalized outreach that gets to what they actually care about. And it's not this sort of one size fits all, which I think is really amazing and kind of like a great place to be. And being at G2 with all these partners like Demandbase, like 6 Sense and Bombora and Medallia and Pendo and Marketo and HubSpot. And Salesforce and LinkedIn for matched audiences, we just are able to like get our hands on so much stuff that we can try. But you, in a MOPS role, and having come from Sendoso, and I think before that you were an SDR, talk a little bit about that experience of kind of like coming into the world of MOPS and having the kind of satisfying job of like being the one that can actually help marketing prove its contribution to pipeline and revenue.
Yeah, I think like The most important thing in my role is just trying to keep as up to date as possible with all the new technology coming out, and getting new requests from marketers of different types of pieces of tech that would be valuable to them. But I think the biggest thing in MOPS is like once you understand what your customer journey looks like from, lead to customer renewal, all the different touch points, what technology is hitting them when. For especially like thinking about like landscape and marketing ops in general, like my biggest thing is always like, how do we align our teams internally so that we're doing campaigns for the right audience on the right platform and we're not mashing things together. Like you can do 10 mediocre campaigns to a widespread audience using every platform, or you can do like 5 really awesome campaigns that are hyper targeted to your demand gen marketer on specific platforms and speaking to what they actually care about. And those are always going to convert higher. So I always like to try to own the conversation of like, are we thinking about this right? Like, is this the right audience for this? Are we using the right technology? And always being the one to kind of question the approach that we're taking just to see if it's right, And I think that's like kind of part of being a MOPS person is being that advisor in those scenarios. But that's yeah, right. it's always changing, always changing.
That's right. That's right. And you really are in an advisory role and kind of doing the metrics also. Let's move on because we have to stay on time here and on task. But this is a look at kind of that incredible landscape and all the wonderful tools we have and the things that your team especially is leveraging. But when you look at the full funnel strategy of what we're doing today, we really are looking at like prospects and who are they in the world? Where are our best bets? Ultimately, we're not actually the ones opening opportunities, sales is, but it's our responsibility to target and go after our best bets. And hopefully they're tagged neatly in Salesforce and you have ways of doing that. If not, you can definitely get there. But then it's about like closing and retaining. And I feel like on the demand gen side of things, we're almost always to a fault focused on new business. And I think I've even been the terrible person in my past that's been like, I don't care about customers. It's not true. I care deeply about customers, but most of my goals are really aligned around generating pipeline for new business. And when your team is structured that way, I feel like it can cause other problems and you can become fragmented and you have people that are gold on like new business and these people over here doing that. And then you end up, fighting for airtime. And sometimes you are, reaching out to the same audience too many times. And I feel like some of our best customers that we have at G2, because we have so many great like marketing teams and people that are on any kind of level of the maturity model for MarTech and demand gen, we see it all. And we see a lot of people that it's like their Salesforce instance is a hot mess and we can all relate to that. And so, people are at different stages of their journey. But I do feel like some of our most savvy customers, Sara, that we get to talk to a lot, understand that their campaigns are so much more effective and powerful when they are targeting in-market buyers. So rather than the old like kind of spray and pray, which is kind of like, let's just generate leads and try to like do a bunch of content syndication and do the things that everybody else does. It's like, what if you had intent signals, powering your marketing strategy, and then you have such great alignment there between sales and marketing because you're actually passing folks that are interested in what you're selling. And don't get me wrong, I still think brand and awareness and things like that are super important because it makes the lives of any demand gen marketer like a whole lot easier when people already know who you are and they love you because you do cool stuff. But then when you're using sort of intent signals that, yes, G2 happens to have, and, solutions like Bombora and 6 Sense, also, you can really drive incredible results with your campaigns and really line up those like best bets for sales. And weren't you an SDR in your past life?
I was, yeah. I made the jump from SDR to marketing, and what I can say is definitely the partnership is the biggest piece. Whenever I talked about campaigns, even at Sendoso, it's like, what's your marketing and sales alignment strategy? Because it's one thing to be doing these marketing campaigns that are talking about competitive intent, But if you're not enabling your sales team with the sequences or the messaging that they can reach out with the same, similar impact of competitive intel, it's kind of like, what's the point? It's going to fall off. And so I personally find that like when marketers are thinking about it from what marketing is doing versus what they can enable sales with, that's when you make actual impact with campaigns. And so I love when marketers are like, how do we use intent with outreach or sales loft or groove or whatever it may be? I'm like, yes, that is exactly how you should be thinking about it. And that's how you're going to win over your sales team with intent too.
100%. And now I want to shift over, having said all that. And it's like, yes, look at all the tools and the incredible things that we can power our campaigns with. Now, for God's sake, be compelling. Like, don't do bad marketing. Like, really, I don't know at what point we forgot like to be Mad Men or to be like pretend that we work for Nike or some incredibly inspiring brands that do amazing things. We're like B2B marketers, right? We can also find ways to cut through the noise and run campaigns that truly educate and solve our prospects and customers' problems. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we're doing. So now you understand your goals, you understand your MarTech landscape. How are you going to create these great experiences? And I feel like that some of our best customers and companies we've worked for before Sara, they're focused on building brand. They understand who they're marketing to. They find ways to cut through the noise, and they're in it for the long game. It's not so transactional, and it's not just about like lead gen anymore. And I feel like anytime somebody even says lead gen these days, I'm like, what year? I mean, like, what are you even talking about? And I wanted to draw from some of our own experiences, not at G2, but places where I've been in my past, where you can do incredible things like map your content strategy to intent signals, to data and insights that all these tools that we have are surfacing for us. And so I kind of feel like everybody knows the machine eats content. It's all about content. And have we moved away from like ebooks with a gated landing page? Yes, I think those things can still be important, but one thing that I've done and we're starting to do more here at G2 is create things like microsites where you create like a whole bunch of content for folks to come and explore. And then you can drive traffic to these sites with like display ads through Rollworks or Demandbase or whatever you're using. You can lean in with LinkedIn advertising where you really are targeting like the entire team at that company that you're going after. You can supplement with your own marketing email outreach or align with the SDR team to craft more sort of like one-to-few or even one-to-one outreach, which is so important. But I feel like the thing that, and I'm going to move to the next slide, that we have to remember is that really every stage is a journey. And maybe that sounds like a little bit like, like yoga style or whatever, but it's true. It's like what we were saying earlier about remembering your prospects. And then the minute they sign the contract, have a plan in place to make sure that they have amazing onboarding experiences, and that they're getting the absolute most out of your product. So at the end of the day, they not only love your product and can't live without it, they love your team and they love the support that you give. And an example of that would be like office hours that we just did last week, where we got on and opened it up to everyone and just said, let's hang out on Zoom and answer your questions. And you can always reach out to us. We're not too busy to like hear from our customers. And I think those are some really great moves that you can do. But one thing that I think, and I want to get your take on this too, Sara, is that sometimes when you do have that, like I'm on the demand gen team and I'm focused on like net new business and driving pipeline, and I'm on the customer marketing team and I'm on product, you do tend to get a little bit fragmented and you move away from what I'm talking about on this slide, which is that it's really the whole journey from targeting the right people with the right messaging at the right time, engaging them and committing to the fact that it's a longer play. It's a longer game. It's a journey. It should be educational. It should be fun. You should never lose sight of what your prospects and customers are solving for. And you really need to kind of embrace quality over quantity, and get away from lead gen. It's about building trust with an audience that you know is interested because you're using those intent signals and other things like that. And I think when you do kind of align your marketing team and you align your marketing team with product and with sales, you really do. And when you look at this whole journey from targeting all the way to like growing, your accounts, then you have a organization where marketing and product development are better aligned, where sales and marketing are better aligned, and you have a lot of moments for cross-functional marketing alignment with its own team, from demand gen to PMM and marketing to customer experience. And I really feel like if we leave here today with nothing else, it's kind of remembering that journey and kind of like being the best marketer that you can be, and also leveraging every tool in your stack that you have and creating like amazing experiences, not just for your prospects and your new business, but then using your tools. Like, I'll say it, me and you are Marketo people. We love HubSpot too. We love all the other, but we grew up, using Marketo. And what are we talking about? Building out engagement programs that are really about, our prospects. But then as soon as they become customers, how do we automatically move them from one engagement program to another, where we're giving them like incredible outreach around onboarding and things like that, but not just email, events, and all the tools in your tool stack and levers that you can pull to create these amazing experiences. So I want to kind of leave it with you, Sara. I'm going to pass it over. It's like we're on Hot Ones. Like, woo, we just ate the hottest fucking wing. I'm dying. Take us home, Sara.
Yeah, I personally love this visual. I think being someone in marketing operations, when you have marketers like yourself who are thinking about it holistically of like, how do we engage, how do we grow, how do we expand, all the things, makes my job a lot easier and a lot more straightforward. So I can say, how can I support you in those goals, and what type of tools and data do we have to get there? So I personally just love this visual. I think if anyone can take this back to their team and be like, great, what do we define in each of these, and what are the tactics and the reporting that we need to get there? It's kind of like, that is cream of the crop marketing reporting right there, is just aligning your audiences to your analytics. It's incredible, and tying in experience there too.
That's right. Dream team right here. So thanks everyone for listening today and joining this great conference. You can always reach out to me, and you can certainly always reach out to Sara. We're here. And if you want to learn more about G2's marketing solutions, you know the drill. This camera, that camera, that camera. Go on g2.com and request a demo. And I'm sure an SDR will reach out and test us, because we're determined to give you the best possible experience that we can. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.